Hey everyone, welcome back to the Speak Up Erika podcast. And in today's episode, we have my friend Anton. Yay!
What's up? I don't know when I should come in. My friend Anton. Oh, okay. Hey.
Hi Anton, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. 12-hour difference, so
Yeah, right now
great.
Anton's in Taiwan. And
Yeah. Thank you for
yeah,
getting that right. If you said Thailand, I would have just logged off.
in China.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right that way.
But I always mistake what the time difference is. I never know what day it is for you and
It's
for
it's
me.
exactly 12 hours ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you want to DM me, just remember 12 hours ahead.
So it's still Tuesday for you, but Tuesday evening.
Yeah. That's right.
Gotcha,
8:23 p.m.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Anton, would you like to just share a little bit about yourself before we get started in our topic?
Man, okay. What should I? Yeah, thanks. I'll just recite my entire life story right now. Okay. Well, I guess the stuff relevant to the topic because today we're going to be talking about like Tinder, I guess dating apps and
Yeah,
mental health, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I guess I'll go through myself in terms of those areas. Uh, well, I am a Tinder user. Um, I used a bunch of dating apps, for the past like 2, 3 years, maybe even a little bit before that. Um, and for mental health, I mean, you know this already, but the
Mhm.
people listening might not. I started Scarlet Slam back at UTM when I was in school.
Oh
It's
my
this
God.
poetry slam for mental health. Bring back memories.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a poetry slam for mental health, and we have speakers come in to talk about mental health, wellness tips. We had this cozy environment and everything. So I was always pretty involved in mental health on campus. And, regarding my own mental health, I started going to therapy back when I was in school. So I think third year, I started doing appointments at the school. And then throughout fourth year, a little bit. And then once I graduated, I also sought mental health help from a therapist because there's just a lot of stuff that came down on me. But yeah, so those are my experiences in both online dating and mental health. Otherwise, I graduated with, I guess we can call it like a digital management degree, right?
Yeah,
Right? Yeah,
I sometimes
whatever.
call it business communications.
Yeah, you can call it whatever. Anyways,
Yeah.
me and Erika, we graduated from the same program at University of Toronto, like digital management, business management. I worked in data for a little bit, and along with the next 40. So I came over to Taiwan last. Was it last? Yeah, it was last year. I came over
Wow.
last year. Yeah, it's been like more than a
It
year.
feels like so long ago.
I know. Think about how I must feel here.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I came over here to teach to just sort of get away again, sort of for my mental health because I noticed the longer that I was staying in my environment, the longer I was trying to look for something there, the more I was just stressing myself out. I was putting more pressure on myself. It was so homogenous
Hmm.
that I just needed to escape. I needed something new. I needed like an experience to make me anxious, break apart everything. Um, Throughout the past year, I started meditating. So I do it 10 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night, and I started off with like 1 minute per day. By the way, can we like contact Headspace and get them to sponsor this episode?
Oh
Because
yeah.
I let's do it.
Let's do it.
I love Headspace, man. Headspace. If you want meditation, go to Headspace. 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. They have I think up to an hour of meditation, which I can't even do, but they have a
Hmm.
bunch of great courses. So if you're thinking of something simple that'll greatly improve your life, yeah, I think Headspace. So that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Anton. I feel like I got taken back into like I totally forgot about Scarlet Slam for a bit, and that's crazy. With Can I talk to you about therapy before we talk more about like so
Yeah,
our
man.
topic
Yeah.
today is dating apps and how it affects your mental health, right? But
Hmm.
if I can talk to you a little bit more about the therapy side.
Hmm.
Yeah. How did you get started with going to therapy? Because I know, I think
Hmm.
I kind of know how you did, but
Hmm.
I know a lot of people struggle with just admitting that they need to go, and that's like kind of one of their first steps in helping with their
Right.
mental health. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, I think it was actually after I already started Scarlet Slam, because
Mm,
before that, I was still having like occasional panic attacks. Like I knew I had some sort of anxiety, but I thought,
mhm,
okay, well, like I'm doing all this stuff, like it's good. I'm helping other people, and like I'm strong enough to sort of like take care of myself.
mhm,
And then after I started Scarlet Slam, I'm kind of like, well, it's unfair of me to say like, hey, go to therapy. It'll really help you out without actually going myself. So that was one aspect of it.
mhm,
The other aspect, I think, just at some point, I just had started having like really really negative thoughts. Like super negative. Just like suicidal thoughts. Anxious thoughts, and I think there was some kind of there was still some sort of insulation mentally between me thinking them and me actually performing that action. Like I knew I wasn't going to kill myself,
mhm.
right? But just the way that they got to me, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
there needs to be something for this. So I went to the health and counseling center at our school, and I booked an appointment. And to be honest, the wait times were huge, but I was still thankful to be able to have like one appointment every 3 weeks or something, where I would come in,
Um,
I would discuss some stuff. And I feel like those initial appointments really unearthed a lot of like the past trauma that I had.
mhm,
Like I'm a first generation immigrant in this country. Um, I come from sort of like a broken home. So
mhm.
all of these things they pile up, and when you're smart and when you have these defense mechanisms that say, okay, well I'm going to focus on school 100%. I'm just not going to think about anything else. Those things work, and they do really well for you until you start getting to the end of your schooling, right?
Mhm.
And at that point, your mind sort of goes like, what now? Because for the past while, it's just been like, okay, we'll focus on school. We're not going to think about anything else. Just school, school, school. And when there's nothing else, you're forced to think about it.
Mhm.
So when I started going to therapy, it unearthed all that stuff, and I think that sort of laid the foundation for the future years. And even now, this is things that I still think about, I still write about, I still explore with my therapist back in Canada. I'm not seeing her right now, but occasionally we'll have like a video call if I really need it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and that's a final thing is I think a lot of people think about therapy as like, okay, well, I'm going to start going to therapy and then I'm going to, like just keep doing it. Or they say like, okay, well, I'm going to go to therapy and it's not going to be effective at all. Sometimes it's effective and sometimes you don't know what the is going on. But the
Oh.
thing that well, it's true because, like sometimes you'll leave the session feeling good, right?
Mhm.
um, like something did just give out. And in the early sessions, because I used to do it every 2 weeks when I first started after I graduated university.
Mhm.
And in those moments, like every 2 weeks that I went, I felt something get lighter, right?
Mhm.
It's not something that you can describe. Something just got lighter. But at the same time, I was still fucking confused. Like I could not tell like how far I was towards being quote unquote better, or like what my next steps would be. Like I got some guidance, but at the same time, like I was still anxious.
Yeah.
So there's these stages that you go through, and like maybe you'll start therapy and you'll go to it for like a month or two every 2 weeks, and then you'll say like, okay, you know what, I'm good. I feel okay. I feel like I'm gonna take on the next challenge, and you do it, right? So like for me, that was going to Taiwan. I told my therapist I'm going to Taiwan. I think I'm okay, and she's like, okay, that's good, you know.
Yeah.
And then when I was in Taiwan, I was there a few months, and then I think early this year I was like, man, like something's just not right. Like I'm just
Yeah.
thinking about my mom so much, and like I don't want to
Mm.
talk to her. And,
Mm.
like there was some stuff, and I was like, okay, it's time to go see her again.
Yeah.
And then I saw her for a bit, and that kind of unblocked something, and then I stopped again, and I probably will go see her again. So it's this kind of like, rather than just thinking about it as this like, okay, I'll go always and it'll always help me, or like this kind of like, okay, I'll go once and it won't help me and then I'll whatever. Think about it as sort of a process, right? You're building this relationship with someone whose job and education it is to help you with your
Mhm.
brain, right? Like, and the kind of help is like, you might say something to them and you just don't see it the same way they do, and they will repeat this has happened so many times. Well, they will repeat the same exact thing back to you in their like therapist talk, and you were like, holy shit, I never thought about it, right?
Yeah.
Like for years I was trying to rebuild the relationship with my sister, and
Yeah.
you know, I was talking to my therapist about it in one of our sessions, and I was just so like heartfelt, and I was like, oh my god, like what else can I do? And she did it in her therapist speak. She's like, maybe you could consider the possibility that your sister is a narcissist. And I'm like,
Hmm.
holy shit, you're right. Like everything just pieced together, and she gave me like a book to read, and I read it, and yeah, man. And now I don't feel bad about not keeping in contact. You know, like everyone has their right. So yeah, I completely encourage anyone who thinks they need a therapist to go see a therapist, and you know, be open to the process, not just like expecting something specific from it. Though I know like that is what people do expect.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I think it's interesting because, well, multiple things that you said. Like, first, where you're so focused on school and then you
Mm,
kind of like forget about it because you're so consumed in so many things. And then
mm,
after is when like it kind of comes back. Because that kind of happened
mm,
to me too with like with my mental health in high school. At the end of high
mm,
school was kind of similar how my mental health was at the end of at the end of university. And I was just
mm,
like, wait, did I not get better? Like, am I still the same person? Like, did anything
mm,
even change? And like all those things just go through your head.
mm,
But yeah, and then when you also mentioned kind of just like how therapy isn't streamlined, like you're always gonna
mm.
have to need it whenever something happens in your life.
Yeah, yeah. So, regarding the first part, you notice like it's near the end of certain things during certain experiences. And you know, I finished my first year here in Taiwan, and I've been getting like I haven't been getting anxiety, but there's been emotions,
Yeah.
right? And you know, it's sort of like this expectation of like, okay, now what, right? And when you start high school, you know that it's going to be 4 years. Like you record it in your brain subconsciously, it goes down into the tunnels. And near the end of that 4 years, your brain's expecting something. It's like trying to figure out what's next, and there's that uncertainty.
Mm.
Same thing with university. You go and you know how long your university program is going to be. No one, no one lets you into university being like, well, I don't know, it might be 11 years. You know, it's like someone tells you you have a 4 year program, you have a 2 year program, you have a 3 year program, whatever it might be. But at the end of that time limit, your brain already knows that it's coming to an end, and you're kind of like, okay, well, what's next? What's next? And I think the crucial part of that is, you know, I read recently the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. I don't know if have you heard of it?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things it talks about is how different socioeconomic groups educate their kids, right? And one of the things that they educate them on is planning, right? So like for someone who was taught to plan ahead, or was taught to sort of work towards that one goal or practice towards one goal, at the end of that 4 years they would know what they would be doing next because they have that overarching goal. They know like, okay, well, I'm going to go to this place. They're already envisioning it.
Mhm.
For other people who aren't so sure or who weren't brought up like that, it's difficult because you're faced with uncertainty and you don't know what to do, right? You don't know how to plan. You don't know what goal you're focusing on. You know, even if you did have a goal, you would probably be discouraged because you weren't taught like the strategies and the tactics and everything to be able to plan ahead. So I feel like that's why really the brain gets nervous because it's smart and it knows that things are coming up even though you're still doing stuff before the real end.
Yeah. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's mysterious, eh? Spooky. Spoopy.
Spoopy. Spoopy
It's
season's
spoopy.
coming up.
It's already here, man. It's been here.
So with therapy, Anton, with myself,
Mhm,
like I have personally always wanted to start doing it, but I've never.
mhm,
I feel like I keep making an excuse, and I'm like, oh well, I'm trying to find this a free resource, or oh, I'm actually kind of better today, and then it happens, something bad happens in my head,
right.
and then it kind of crashes again.
Mhm.
So, could you like maybe suggest if someone like myself wants to start taking therapy, what resources, I
Yeah.
guess? Yeah.
Yeah. Dear Anton, can you force me to go to
Yeah.
therapy?
Can you?
Okay. Well, you know what?
Don't, yeah, of
Well,
course.
it's up to you in the end, but you know,
Yes.
I feel like it could offers a little bit of a little bit more understanding to what's going on. You know,
Mhm.
there's a kind of aversion. I feel like there's a kind of aversion of a virgin
Yeah.
of please keep that in, by the way, that was hilarious. Aversion to getting help. Um, and I've been reading another book recently. I'm like a book fiend right now. It's called
Mhm.
The User's Guide to the Human Mind. And one of the things it talks about specifically is this need for the mind to defend itself, right? You have this kind of like reptilian brain, and you know it functions on a very basic level. So if you get into a car crash, obviously you'll start being afraid of cars. But on a deeper level, it also avoids emotionally problematic situations, and it avoids disconnection or even the perception of disconnection, right? So if you think something might disconnect you from others or even change you in some way that you're not certain of, you'll avoid it. And you know, this has some benefits. Like you have a consistent identity, so you know, every time you see your friends, they can expect you to be a certain way, and that's comfortable.
Mhm.
But you know, the ways it's not beneficial is what you're saying. Like you know, when people refuse to get help simply because they they, they're subconsciously afraid of this new experience that might change them.
Mhm.
So I think a part of recognizing why you don't go is to simply notice, you know, when you start thinking of going, or if you even make a plan to go, what are the feelings associated with that? You know, do you really take it seriously? Do you actually feel like you have the need for help, or are you kind of like starting to worry? Are you starting to imagine scenarios where it might not be effective, or you know, scenarios where you might waste time? You know, every mind has a different way of trying to defend you, but
Mhm.
mainly it'll try to make you more anxious and make you imagine something as undesirable. So that's one part of it. And then I think another part of it would be, goddamn, I lost my train of thought. I was so on it. Give me like 2 seconds.
Yeah, that was so great though,
Thank you. Thank
'cause
you.
I think that's something I haven't thought about. We can cut this part out. It was like
No, no, no,
your
no. I
environment.
mean, you can talk and then I can think and then we can
Okay,
reverse. You know, this is
sounds
how
cool.
this thing
Yeah.
works. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go for it.
But no, like thank you so much for sharing about that because
Mm,
I think I've never thought about like my feelings in that certain moment. Like of course
mm,
I kind of have an idea, but
mm,
yeah, it's like I don't know, for me, I think maybe one of the reasons was just I feel like, "Oh, but I'm okay now." And then it happens and
mm,
then I'm like, "Oh, but I'm
mm.
okay again." But it's like kind of a cycle that I feel like, "Oh, I still should go."
Right,
'Cause
right,
just
right.
because I mean, you don't have to be like super screwed up, I guess, to go to
Mm,
therapy. That I feel like that's kind of a misconception. Right?
mm,
Like, people have an idea of, like, oh, people who go to therapy are, like, super screwed up or something.
mm.
Is that just I don't know if I'm just I'm not
No,
saying it like yeah, but
no,
I
no, 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 no. I completely get you.
yeah,
Yeah,
like a
man. Like, and
stereotype maybe, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that's sort of that. You know, that's not something that exists in reality.
Yes,
You
yeah.
know, and there are some people who might have that viewpoint,
Yeah.
but I think where that comes from for most people is fear, right?
Yeah.
So again, going back to that idea that the brain is trying to protect itself mainly from disconnection, because you know it's this primitive brain. We are monkeys. We grew up in the savannah, which is, I don't know if you've been to a savannah. Fucking dangerous, right? There's animals everywhere. In the early days, they want to eat you. Your only hope is staying with the people closest to you. So being alone, hugely disadvantageous,
Mhm.
right? So the mind fears this disconnection. And one of these perceived disconnections that it fears is, I think, looking like you're abnormal, right? Or looking like um, you're too needy, or looking like there's something innately wrong with you. Whereas, you know, everybody has these feelings, because if you didn't, chances are that your ancestor wouldn't survive. They simply wouldn't survive, because anxiety is the mechanism that gave our ancestors the ability to survive. And
Mm,
it's only rampaging now because we're not in the same environment. You know, we're not near mountain lions. You know, we're not near. I feel like most of us. I pray that no one that's listening to this is near like a huge fire or like a storm or something like that, or an earthquake. But yeah, we don't have these very real dangers. So what we're left to is what we have around us, which is connection. And so we fear disconnection a lot. And that's the kind of aversion that we build up, where it says in our head, like, okay, well, I can't go to a therapist because that will affirm that there's something wrong with me.
Yeah. Whoa, crazy.
But I would contest that with, even if there is nothing, like, again, I'm doing air quotes right now. You can't see it, but I'm doing air quotes. Quote unquote, wrong with you. I think going to a therapist is beneficial for everyone.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember where I heard this from. I think it's from like Terrence McKenna or his brother. They said nobody gets out without a few scars. You know, everyone is broken in some way. It might even be subtle art of not giving a fuck. I think he might have used that phrase. But yeah, nobody gets out without a few scars. You know, you cannot live a perfect life. You know, think about the subject of parents, right? Like, this is something I thought about a lot, where I'm like, oh man, like I don't have a father, and you know, like my mom's getting old, and you know, like there's a lot of grief in that statement, right? But then I realized, even if it might be even more sad if you did grow up with the perfect parents and you did go through your entire life and then they died.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
Like yeah, man, it's a relative level of pain, and you know, like everybody will get it. You are not safe. Nobody is safe. Everyone will experience pain that is relative to them, and everyone will have very hard days. Everyone will have really happy days. But that's the point, right? Like, we go to a therapist to make sense of that, not to necessarily say like, oh, okay, well, you know, my abandonment didn't happen, I'm good like everyone else. It's to make sense of that and to make it useful.
Yeah.
You know, I would say, especially if you're thinking of being a leader, if you're thinking of being in a leadership position of some sort, or, you know, if you want to work within your community, or, oh man, with kids, especially with kids, man, there's so much about working with kids that's just made me realize a lot about myself, because kids don't have that. You know, like they like they are completely open to all connection, and that's scary, right? Like, that's something that we've already kind of like cut off. Like, whenever we meet a new person, we already start judging, like, okay, what's going to happen? Who is this person? What do they do? Like, that's already set. So if you're thinking of being a leader, if you're thinking of being a community builder, if you're thinking of working with kids, you need to understand what's happened to you and how it's affected you, so that you can move forward and work with other people and, you know, build something better for others, hopefully also for your future family if you decide to have one.
Yeah. Aw, yay. Thanks, Anton.
Yeah, no worries.
I think this will end our part 1 in talking about dating and therapy. Thank you so much, Anton.
And this is how I conned Erika into doing 2 episodes with me.
Help!
Yeah. All right. Awesome.
Awesome. Okay. Catch you in the next episode, everyone. Bye.
Yes. See ya.